Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, we have big things to discuss today. We have a few lines that I guarantee you not many people are watching right now. First and foremost, this line right here, stemming back from 2013, the relevance it has today, and also a rejection from the green linear regression fit line on the power law chart, which marked the top at 73k. What could that mean for Bitcoin? Big things to discuss, as well as the halving in 16 days and the effect that could have on Bitcoin as well. Before we get into any of these things, check out the BitGet and BingX exchanges in the links below in my description. You'll find my referral links for BingX and BitGet. You'll get 15% trading fee discounts, as well as a chance at $5,000 in USDT in rewards for completing various tasks upon using my links. So go ahead and do that if you're interested. Very good exchanges there. All the information's below. Let's not waste any more time, guys. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into anything I discussed in the introduction there, I want to quickly give you a very, very quick update on where Bitcoin is right now. Bitcoin closed the monthly candle above the highest ever monthly candle close level from October 2021. That was very good, but we also recognized yesterday that while Bitcoin was in a very good position on the monthly chart, the total cryptocurrency market cap actually rejected from that very same level, which is not very good, and Ethereum did a very similar thing. It rejected from a resistance zone back here in 2022, which again is not very good. So although we saw Bitcoin in a very good position on the monthly chart, the total cryptocurrency market cap and the Ethereum chart actually highlighted the reality that Bitcoin is not out of the woods yet. And at the same time as that occurred, we saw Bitcoin breaking down from an ascending support line stemming backwards from here in February 26, broke down from that line, came upwards, rejected from the level there for support. In fact, if we zoom in, we can get a little bit cleaner picture here for you so you can see it a little bit clearer. As you can see, rejected from that level there, and we are on the way down probably a bit more on Bitcoin. We could be finding a bottom in various locations, but we'll leave that for yesterday's video. All the stuff there's discussed yesterday. Today I'm going to be discussing different things. Another thing I wanted to quickly talk about before we get into the content today is the weekly candle close. Again, in yesterday's video, the most important thing I talked about was the weekly candle and how right now the weekly candle close is hovering in a pretty dangerous territory. We really want to be seeing the weekly candle close above 69k, because 69k is where we saw the 2021 all-time high. That is where as well we found resistance on the weekly chart up until last week, which we closed above that yellow level, but now we're hovering back below it. And if we close the weekly candle below 69k, we will be breaking down from this ascending wedge formation on the RSI, which could send us lower on Bitcoin. So a few things to watch on the Bitcoin short term and even long-term charts, weekly chart, monthly chart, daily chart. Mostly the weekly chart's very important right now. Again, I discussed all of that in yesterday's video. If you want a full breakdown on that, go ahead and click on yesterday's video. But today I'm discussing something slightly different. But we need the context. The reason I brought all of this up is because we need the context. Bitcoin right now is in a relatively dangerous position, not on a macro scale. Macro is still looking great, but on a medium-term scale. On a short-term, medium-term scale, will we see a correction for the next month or two? That's what we're really talking about here. And this is where we get into something like the halving. Because if we're discussing the next medium, the next, couple weeks or the next month or next 2 months, which is what we really looked at yesterday, we need to really look at something that's going to be happening in the next 2 months, right? In fact, in 16 days, and that is the Bitcoin halving. So this is going to have a huge effect on medium term. The Bitcoin halving, let me get this very, very clear, is something that happens once every 4 years, right? Everyone here should know what the halving is. If you don't know what the halving is, I don't know what you're doing watching a TA video, okay? Because this is 101 stuff here. The halving is essentially when mining rewards half on Bitcoin, happens every 4 years roughly, and it's happening in 16 days. And historically speaking, okay, the halving, which happens every 4 years, triggers a bull market. There's a reason why, you've probably heard of it, something called the 4-year cycle is a thing. Every 4 years we see a halving, the halving triggers a bull market, therefore we see a 4-year cycle on Bitcoin, okay? So the halving's coming up very shortly in 16 days. And given that information, we have to really look into what the halving does to Bitcoin historically. So I've marked out on the map right here, on the chart, every single halving on Bitcoin is a yellow vertical line. Our first halving was in November 2012, right? Then we had a halving in July 2016. Then we had a halving in May 2020. And now we're going into a halving this month in April 2024. So what is the effect on price action? Well, we know by looking at this chart here, we see the halving, we see a bull market. Halving, bull market. Halving, bull market. And so you could come to the conclusion, based on that after we see the halving in 16 days, Bitcoin's just going to go upwards. We're going to enter a bull market. It's going to be great. That's not really the case, okay? Because if we go to a daily chart, we zoom in a little bit further, we have to remember, guys, the monthly chart is a very diluted view of Bitcoin. There's 30 days in a monthly candle, okay? 30 days is a long time. A lot can happen in 30 days. If we go back on the daily chart to something like 2012, we can see the halving occurred around the 28th of November. And after the halving, we did not see an instant surge in price action. We actually saw, basically, 45 days, if not 50 days, okay, so almost 2 months of sideways price action on Bitcoin before that pump actually occurred, okay? If we go to 2016, what we can see is that we saw not only sideways, but we actually saw downwards price action. We saw the halving occur here, and we actually saw a 27 to a 30% drop, basically, and then we basically took, in order to get back above that level and actually enter a bull market, we took essentially 100 days after the halving to actually get above the level in which the halving occurred and enter a bull market from there. So downwards price action and then 100 days of sideways before entering a bull market. In 2020, we continued going sideways for an astonishing, okay, the halving occurred, basically nothing happened to the price. We continued going sideways for like 2 months, and to be honest, for the most part, it was basically 100 days of price action sideways before we went upwards. So historically speaking, at the halving itself and the immediate effect of the halving is not actually very bullish at all, really. I mean, in 2012, we went sideways for like 45 days. In 2016, we went downwards and then sideways for like 100 days. And in 2020, we went sideways for like 100 days. So there's no real reason to expect an immediate pump at the halving based on the historical data. Now, obviously, it could happen, right? Maybe this time's different. But if anything is to... if history is to say anything, which history is everything when it comes to financial markets, it comes to predicting price action, the halving itself, the actual event itself of the halving, is not a bullish short-term event, historically. It just kind of leads to either downwards price action or sideways. It's basically a non-event. It's the macro effect of the halving that really drives Bitcoin upwards, but that could take 100 days. So, the halving itself being in 16 days doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't go down here, okay? It's very important to note that. Bitcoin right now is at threat. It's in threat. It's in a breakdown currently. It hasn't really entered a proper downwards trend yet, but it's not doing particularly well. And the halving in 16 days, there's no reason to really believe that will be the saving grace that's going to drive Bitcoin upwards. So it's very important to note that. Now, I'm not sitting here and, people get confused with my videos quite a lot because they can't really differentiate being bullish long time frame and not being bullish short time frame. They just don't really understand that. They can't comprehend it. I want to make myself very, very, very clear so there's no misinterpretation. I am so macro bullish. I believe Bitcoin is in a great macro position. That does not mean I have to think Bitcoin's going up every single day. That's just not rational. It's not logical. Right now, Bitcoin is not in the best short-term position. That's the reality. And the halving in 16 days, there's no reason to really believe that will be the saving grace. Now, that's the reality of the halving that people aren't telling you. That's what people really lie to you about the halving. Now, moving into some longer-term charts here, okay? Because this is the real juice here in this video, and this is what you really want to see. We have lines on Bitcoin on longer term charts, and perhaps this is a little bit of divergence of topics, but I'm still going to discuss it anyway. We have a line here on Bitcoin going backwards from 2013, okay? And we can see this support line, and now look, I'm not going to act like it's the cleanest line ever. There's been jumps up and down, and there's been not really too clean retests, but for the most part, this line has been relatively valid. It stems back from 2013 high. It was tested for support here in 2014. Tested for support here. It flipped in 2017. Resistance here in 2018. Got back above it. Tested for support. Moved above it. Bounced off of it again. COVID was a deviation. You can cross that off the map. Test. Bounce into a bull market. Got below it. Flipped it for resistance. Got again above it. Resistance test. Broke above it. And right now we are above that level. Now what you'll notice about this line is that generally speaking, when we get above this line, we back test it, okay? So for example, we got above it here, we back tested. We got below it, we back tested before we went down. We got above it, we back tested it before we went upwards. Got below it, back tested it before we went upwards. Back tested it here before we went upwards. Test, back test. This line is prone, in every sense of the word, to back tests after we break down and break above. What have we done recently? We've broken above this line, and we have not seen a back test yet. So it stands to reason that we could be seeing a back test of this line, a drop downwards on Bitcoin. I don't know what it would be, maybe 58k, something like that, maybe a bit lower, to back test that line before going upwards and entering a bull market, just like what we saw throughout these retests here in 2020. That is a very feasible scenario, and that is something that we're going to be watching very, very closely. It's a very important chart. I don't see many people bring it up. In fact, I was actually informed about this chart. I looked at it back in 2020 too, when we retested here in July, but I was informed about this chart by someone on my email address, actually, who showed me this chart, so shouts to him. His name was Patrick. So yeah, shouts to you, Patrick. Good spot there. Again, I discussed this back in 2022, and I think I may have briefly brought it up here in January this year, but it's certainly something that not many people are watching. It's very easy to forget about charts like this, given how long-term they are. Another thing that's very important that I discovered just yesterday was actually this chart right here, the power law chart on Bitcoin. Very good chart because it's generally speaking predicted where the all-time highs and where the bottoms have been on Bitcoin. You can see this red power law line here has been basically where we've seen every single bear market bottom. The purple line is basically where we've seen every single bull market top except for 2021. Right now, what we can see is that the green line, which is the kind of halfway point that divides macro bull markets and euphoric macro bear markets and euphoric bull markets, has actually been retested at 73k and rejected from. So perhaps the top we saw on Bitcoin right here at 73k was actually topped out because that was price discovery, right? So there's no historical resistance there. So the resistance had to come from somewhere. And perhaps it actually came from the power law chart, this green line right here, which we rejected from. So we have to break above that green line, right? That's our next step for Bitcoin, right? Otherwise, we can't really enter a euphoric bull market because that green line is what rejected us here on this price discovery high. So we really need to get above that line. Very, very important chart. And I'm going to look more into these two charts specifically tomorrow, do a bit of a deep dive into them. But right now, it's very good to introduce them here. I don't want to make this video too long. I've been trying to have an effort to keep my videos shorter. And just for the sake of ease of digestion, I understand people watch a lot of content. They don't really have, 30 minutes per day to watch YouTube videos on Bitcoin where half of it's rambling. So I'm keeping it digestible and short here. But basically, the key points I discussed in this video today is that the halving is not an immediate short-term bullish event. There's a very important 11-year long line on Bitcoin, which could be suggesting a retest before a absolute blast to the upside. Very bullish line, but not very bullish for medium term, short term. And the power law chart is suggesting that our 73k top was actually a hidden resistance zone from this green line. A very informative video here today. So if you appreciate the video, please go ahead and thank me or leave a question or whatever it may be in the comment section. Leave a like. And again, go ahead to those links down below. BingX and BitGet. Click on those links. Sign up to those exchanges. Helps the channel quite a lot. You can also join our VIP group on Telegram, guys. We do altcoin trading signals on VIP with a 78.52% win rate. Almost 4 out of every 5 trades reaching profit. Very profitable group there. Go ahead and check that out. And then finally, the Crypto Academy's Become a Trader bull market sale for the course is on right now. Learn how to trade with that course in a university style format. Guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in tomorrow's video. Cheers.